welcome to Long Live Hooky Street, the podcast where we rewatch and discuss every episode of Britain's most beloved TV comedy, Only Fools and Horses. I'm Heather, and I'm joined from Denver, Colorado by my co-host and sister, Jenny. Say hello, dude.
Hello.
Today we are discussing Series 3, Episode 8, and the 1983 Christmas special, Thicker Than Water. So grab a Grand Marnier and grapefruit juice, and let's get started.
So it's Christmas 1983 and Thicker Than Water aired on the BBC at 9:35 p.m. on Sunday, December 25th, 1983, Christmas Day. This would be the first time in Only Fools and Horses history that a Christmas special aired on Christmas Day, but certainly not the last. Most British people of this generation will have very fond memories of Only Fools and Horses Christmas specials airing on Christmas Day, and that started right here in 1983, with 10.8 million viewers tuning in for this historic event. Is that not just the perfect picture of your childhood? Only Fools and Horses on Christmas Day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I commented on a video before saying that Christmases growing up were always associated with Only Fools and Horses because there was always a Christmas special on for Only Fools and Horses.
For anybody who's our age and who loved the show, it was a huge highlight of Christmas Day.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
But where did Only Fools and Horses slot into the schedule this year? Interestingly, this year, the Christmas special was much more widely promoted. So 4 days before Thicker Than Water aired on the BBC, the Trotters were featured in a 6-minute comedy sketch on the Russell Harty show.
Who's Russell Harty?
So the sketch was performed live, and the premise was that Del had brought Rodney and Grandad to the show for free food, but he was planning to leave them there and go out. So it's worth a watch on the YouTube channel. There's a channel by the Only Fools and Horses Appreciation Society, which is a great channel. It's got tons of videos and stuff, and it has the clip up in full for you to watch if you want to watch it. At the end of the sketch, Russell Harty actually tries to talk to them and they stay in character, so it's interesting to see the improv, although I'm not a fan of Harty's performance at all. He seems kind of awkward and not a natural at improv, but the way that David Jason, Nick Lyndhurst and Leonard Pierce handle it is really, really good. So it's worth a watch if you haven't seen it. So the BBC lineup also included many of the same popular shows as previous years. The Two Ronnies, still Jim Will Fix It, Top of the Pops. This year they aired Only Fools and Horses straight after All Creatures Great and Small, and it was followed by the news at 10:05 p.m. A little bit about Christmas 1983 here in the UK. The number one movie at the UK box office was still Trading Places. But the overall highest grossing movie of the year was Star Wars Return of the Jedi.
I love that one.
Yes, nice and in keeping with the May the Force Be With You episode. Christmas number one in the music charts was actually Only You by the Flying Pickets, as we suspected it would be. People who were alive and old enough at the time might remember the Arctic blast, so the temperatures did not exceed -4 Celsius. Neither of us were alive. But technically I was in the oven at this time. So this Christmas, Mum and Dad were actually expecting me in the spring of 1984. So I'm on my way. So it's hard to believe that all of this stuff happened before we were born. But
yeah, I know. There's a lot of stuff that happened before we were born.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it. The whole world doesn't revolve around me. What are you telling me? So a few interesting episode facts. Series 3 would mark the first time the Christmas special was actually pre-planned. Thicker Than Water had been filmed during the same filming schedule as the other Series 3 episodes, and broadcast just 1 week after Who's a Pretty Boy. So all of the other previous series, they had either been rush commissioned, like Christmas Crackers, or filmed and aired months after the others, such as Diamonds of a Heather. So this is the first time it was consecutive, and it felt like part of Series 3. This is the final 30-minute Christmas special ever to be made. All future Christmas specials were extended in length. John Sullivan felt this episode was the perfect time to stir up the issue of paternity. He had always wanted the physical differences between the Trotter brothers to be a subject of conversation. This episode was the first big hint that the brothers may have different dads. It doesn't say for sure at the end of this one, but it's like a massive opening of the can. So Sullivan also felt it was time for a family reunion. He based the character of Reg Trotter on many men from the streets where he lived in his childhood. Lazy, conniving, heavy drinkers, womanizers, big letdowns to their family. He even stated that his own grandfather was that type. That's on his father's side. So many people think of this as Leonard Pierce's final appearance, and this is true in an official sense. There was the other episode that was filmed but not aired as part of the ordinary series run. That was the License to Drill special, which we'll talk about in the end of series summary, which was just provided as an educational piece. and it wasn't aired. I mean, I never saw it when I was a kid, so I never class it as the last episode, but it was the last time they filmed together, or the last time it was filmed and produced, I guess. It gets a little bit complicated because many people do know that he did start filming Series 4 as well. So it was a deliberate choice by Sullivan not to bring Reg back again in the future. He believed that the audience would never accept Del's character letting Reg be part of the family again, and he was a truly rotten bastard with no possible redemption arc. And the character of Reg is much more developed in Rock and Chips, and there will undoubtedly be a lot of inconsistencies that we could explore. We're not going to because, we haven't watched Rock and Chips together and compared anything yet. But, I mean, just from watching it myself once through, I'm sure there are things that we can pull out of it that don't match up with things that are said in this episode. But he was still a shithead, even in Rock and Chips, and he doesn't make you feel any sympathy for him. He's not the kind of character where you feel a little bit sorry for him and you think maybe he could be okay in the future with him. Just, there's nothing. So, as usual, I'll have the rest of my trivia to scatter through the episode breakdown. So, shall we move on to the episode rankings?
Yep, so let's do that. Okay, for the last time in Series 3. So our regular listeners will know by now, each week we reveal and compare our rankings for the episode, and prior to recording the entire podcast, we independently ranked all 64 episodes. So if you didn't already know that, then you are not yet one of our regular punters, and we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast. We release a new episode every Saturday. So, dude, what is your ranking out of 64 for this episode?
My ranking is 29.
Oh, so close to mine.
It is? Okay, what's yours?
It is. My ranking is 27.
Oh, very close, yeah.
So I feel we feel similarly about this episode. So do you want to tell me why you ranked it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say that the IMDb ranking is 41, which is lower than both of ours.
Oh, much lower than us,
yeah. I think that people feel like this episode leaves the classic Only Fools and Horses track a little bit, and people might not like it because it doesn't have anybody else in it. Because you would, think about all the future Christmas specials, one thing that people really love is everyone together, right? And actually didn't notice it till I was doing the watch through that almost the whole episode is in the flat. And and even when they're in the pub, it's just them. And yes, there's, is it Maureen? No, it's Karen.
Yeah.
Right.
Karen.
Yeah.
Rob Mike's not in it. I mean, Mike was introduced in the last episode and he's not in this one.
So I do think that, honestly, if they just had one scene at the end where they'd put Boise, Trigger and everybody in, a lot of people would favour this episode a lot more. The story's good. It's really great to see some Trotter family stuff going on, and it includes all the characters in a fair sense. It's got quite a lot of Grandad in it. Get a little bit of Trotter history and the bond between the brothers. So I overall think it's a really good episode, and I do tend to like watching it. And it does feel Christmassy as well.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I put here another note, because I've done this in all the other Christmas specials, for the review by Phantom Tollbooth, because it seems to just do really good Christmas episode reviews. But one thing that they pointed out this time, which really rang true for me, is there's a continuing theme that every time Sullivan focuses on Christmas, it's sad and poignant for the Trotters rather than being happy. So that might be why he didn't focus on Christmas in future Christmas specials. A lot of the Christmas specials are not even set at Christmas, like To Hull and Back and Jolly Boys Outings, obviously set in the summer. But every time it does come to Christmas in the future, it isn't heavily focused on the Christmassy aspects, because every time they did do that, it seems sad in a way. And that might be because of how tragic the family actually is overall. So yeah, they pointed that out in their review. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, there's only really two I can think of that are Christmassy, that are set at Christmas, which is Heroes and Villains and Fatal Extraction. So it's two of the last ones, right? Yeah.
But they don't mention massively that Christmas isn't the center of the story.
No,
I know,
Christmas is happening around.
It's happening, but
yes,
it isn't super Christmassy.
The only bit that I find the most Christmassy is when they're toasting at the end of Heroes and Villains, but honestly that's because Two Become One by the Spice Girls is playing in the background, and I find that a very Christmassy song. Yes,
and it was Christmas.
Yes, it was Christmas.
In reality. And also, the end of Fatal Extraction with the hymn when they pan over the tree, and the first scene of Mother Nature's Son, right, where they're all partying in the pub.
Oh, yeah, that's
Even
true.
though that's a dream.
Yes, I was going to say. But then it does come on the radio, so it is still Christmas.
Yeah, so that scene, even though it's a dream scene, is what people want from a Christmas special, right?
Yes.
But then they see something like this episode, and that's why you see maybe people are thinking this is more sad because it isn't super jazzed up partying, but it is still set on Christmas. So
Yeah,
yeah,
true.
that's the only reason I can think that it slips down to 41 for the IMDb ranking, because I do think it's a pretty good plot. It's nice to see the family stuff.
Well, this episode is unique in so many ways. Comparatively to all the other episodes, I can't really think of any episode that's similar to this one.
No.
Because as you said, it explores something that we don't ever really touch on again. And obviously getting to meet their dad is a huge moment for their character development as well. So I think this is why I rank this one quite high, because I do think it's a solid script. It's got some great one-liners, which I'll talk about in the episode breakdown. And yeah, the involvement of the three main characters around this central character that they all have very different relationships with. It's lovely, yeah, to see them all interacting with their past in this way, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So if we've got nothing else, should we move on to the episode breakdown?
La 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 la, la 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 la, la la la.
Okay, so we start in the Trotter flat. As Jenny mentioned, a lot of the scenes are in the Trotter flat for this episode. And it's Rodney and Grandad watching an old film at Christmas. So it's actually Christmas Day, or Christmas night, should I say, that we start on here. So technically all the build-up and everything is not even mentioned in this episode. We're already jumping to the end of Christmas Day. They have a funny exchange about who is more hard done by.
Grandad, it is Christmas night and I'm stuck in here watching a film that the Germans tried to bomb.
I know what you mean, Rodney. I feel exactly the same.
I thought you liked the film.
I do. I mean, it's Christmas night and I'm stuck in here with you.
We find out that Del is out with a girl, so that's why he's not in the, or should I say a woman? He's not in the flat with them. So the doorbell rings and they have an argument about who's going to answer that as well. But then Rodney goes to answer it. And before he opens the door, he says,
Suppose you run out of Bob Martins again, have ya?
Bob Martins are condoms, right?
No. Bob Martins he's talking about the vitamins for dogs. So he's saying it because he makes another joke about the dog, and I wrote in my notes dog jokes again.
To give to the girl because he's calling the girl a dog. He opens the door and he doesn't realise that he's looking at his father, and he looks like an old dishevelled man. Obviously we as the audience don't know who he is at this moment. And he says,
I'm looking for a family called the Trotters.
The Trotters? What makes you think the Trotters live here then?
It's written on your bell.
So actually, interesting to have the name of the family that lives in the house written on the bell. That's definitely not a thing nowadays, because that would be a massive security issue if you did that nowadays. So again, it's just a trust thing from the olden days.
I was going to say, actually, in Texas, it was super common. And my husband and I thought it was weird. Not only the big ranches where they have the name over the actual entrance to the ranch, there were people in our neighborhood that put on their house number in the front of the house, like the Estrada family and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's very risky.
I personally agree. Like, my husband and I were like, we would never put our name in the front of our house. But I don't know. I guess people do. In general, keeping yourself private is the safest way to be.
Yes, I agree with you. I certainly wouldn't want to put my name on my doorbell because any stranger.
Especially the Trotters, right? Because Del gets himself into all sorts of scrapes.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Del screwed over a lot of people.
I don't know.
You don't want anyone to know. But then also in the same vein, everyone knows where the Trotters live, right?
Well, yeah. And why did he say that? Why didn't he just say, I used to live here?
Yeah, exactly. Well, because it wouldn't have been as great. This next moment wouldn't have been as good if he'd said that, which I'll get to now.
Yeah.
So we have this really beautifully acted moment here where Grandad comes out and he sees his son for the first time in 18 years. And it's just a lovely moment. There's no laughter. You can hear a pin drop in the audience in this moment when they embrace and he says,
Too long, Reggie. Too long. Oh.
I just put very touching, really beautiful moment between them there. Even though he turns out to be an asshole, the son, it's still a lovely moment. And of course, Rodney has no idea who he is, so he makes a joke. And then the scene ends with a very poignant moment where Grandad says,
Rodney, I'd like you to meet your dad.
So I do have one question. Does Rodney not have any idea what his dad looks like? Are there literally no photos? Because there is a photo of the Jolly Boys outing that he's in, I know, from the very last episode where they see a picture of Rodney, i.e. Freddy the Frog, in the picture.
Yeah, right. So in my notes here, I wrote, so the description of Reg from the script, it says, Reg is 56-ish, very specific, wears a stained and disheveled suit. He has a 2-day growth of beard and carries a small and battered case. He has a pathetic air about him. At first, he appears meek and helpless. And then it says, Rodney has not seen his father since he was 5. Doesn't recognize him. It says that in the script. 5 is not that young, and he can't look that different. And he was cast to look like David Jason.
The casting's very good.
I think it's actually just because he was caught off guard and didn't think to look, oh, is that my dad? I feel like you would have recognized him, but he hasn't seen him since he was like, so it's been 18 years. I kind of understand it's not the first thing that jumped to mind, and also probably looks a lot older and more disheveled. And he'd already jumped to the conclusion that he was like a homeless guy begging or something. So I do kind of understand why.
But Grandad also calls him Reggie, which is his dad's name. Presumably he knows that.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And obviously Grandad's reaction would have been a bit of a giveaway to me that it's someone really special to him and his name's Reggie. Well, that would have been enough for me. But yeah, I suppose for the moment to work, he can't recognise him. Otherwise we don't get that lovely line from Grandad.
Yeah, exactly.
Any other notes on that scene?
Yeah, so I wrote, so Grandad and Rodney wearing their Christmas hats, very classic sign of British Christmas. I always mention it because the Americans don't understand it at all, like the Christmas hats thing. But if they see it, they're like, oh, it's English Christmas. And I still remember my husband's mom calling them the crowns one time when she looked at the pictures, like
crowns,
why are you all wearing crowns? It's like, yeah, you're right. They are the crowns. So the movie that they're watching on TV is called Sleepless Nights from 1932. I mentioned the dog jokes again, only because they have fallen away a little bit over the course of Series 3, but every Christmas special gets dog jokes, Christmas crackers. Did you have an old dog from Diamonds of Heather?
Yeah.
And now we're back with Lassie again. So I don't know what it is about Christmas. Dog jokes are back. A bit of Rodders and Grandad banter here to remind us how boring family Christmases can be and how they can resent one another's company despite being a family. It happens. Somebody pointed this out on Fandom, and I had never noticed it before, but it is true that the dining chairs are not there when Rodney and Grandad get up to go and answer the door.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, the flat looks really empty. The chairs are not there.
Probably sold them so they could buy Christmas presents.
No, because they're back as soon as Reggie's inside. Maybe they put them away because and they just pulled them out for Reggie. It makes no sense. Yeah, can't see why that would be. And so, a little bit of trivia on Peter Woodthorpe. Peter Woodthorpe was cast by Ray Butt because of his similarity to David Jason, but David Jason says he couldn't see it. There was only actually 9 years age difference between them. Peter Woodthorpe's only 9 years older than David Jason. And he has a very long IMDb with lots of credits, a lot of stage credits, and he passed away in 2004.
All right, so we go to, I'd imagine, a few hours later, and it's still Christmas night, so yeah, a few hours later, and we cut straight away to Del storming in to the flats, and he obviously looks like he's ready to give his dad a smack at this point. He's going straight in, and Rodney tries to talk him down. They stay in the entrance of the home for this part.
He's not the man you remember, I promise.
Rodney indicates that he's a little bit like Del, and then tries to cover that up so Del doesn't get offended.
Look, I know you've told me you used to be a right Jack the Lad, you know, all the flashy shirts and the gold cufflinks. Well, a bit like some of the lads down the pub, right?
So he describes him as frightened and dishevelled. And as soon as we see Reg, we saw him as dishevelled and frightened in the previous scene, but the second that we see him and Del walks into the flat, he is cocky, arrogant, and slobbish. And he just, he is everything that Del described him to be, before.
Del, boy, good to see you, son. Pour yourself a drink.
Instantly, Del wants to get rid of him, and Grandad defends his son, which is understandable. And something that's important for continuity purposes is the line when he says,
look, when he closed that door in 1965, he closed it for good.
So we have an actual year that Reg left now. Again, not sure how accurate that is with the continuity we're keeping an eye on. I'm sure we'll talk about that in the Series 3 overview.
Well, I'm going to put most of it into the Series 3 overview, but yeah, it affects two of my notes for this scene. So Del says 965 and Rodney was 5. So that gives us a year of birth for Rodney, which would be 1960. But it doesn't add up with lots of the other stuff, which we'll cover in the next episode. But one of the funniest things is that they say Rodney was 5 when Reg left, and they keep saying it was been 18 years. So Rodney's still 23 at the end of the third season, the series. They haven't aged him. I mean, they've mentioned that he was 23 and a half in No Greater Love. And does he say 23 in Healthy Competition or 24?
24, you might have said.
Yes, but I mean, it's been 3 series, 3 Christmases, and he was 23 in Big
Christmases,
Brother.
He's aged a year at the most.
So they've forgotten to age Rodney.
Maybe Christmas crackers didn't really happen. It was just a figment of the imagination, a bad nightmare. Maybe that's what
it was a bad
just
dream.
Like the fans want it to be. I think something that's really interesting here is straight away Rodney's being a good Samaritan to Reg. And it's like Reg already knew that Rodney would challenge Del and stand up for him over Del, because he says,
Let's hear what Rodney's got to say.
in this very very creepy kind of conniving way. And yeah, I do think it's very clear that Reg already thinks he's got his feet under the table because he's got Grandad and Rodney on side, which he's not wrong, actually. So then we get the very famous line when he's talking about his history with their mother.
I never raised a hand to your mother, Rodney, except in self-defence.
I say that's a famous line because that is the line I'm sure everybody remembers of Reg, because it's in Time in Our Hands as the last time we hear his voice in the flat when Del is walking around reminiscing. So it's like the Millwall line from Grandad as well. That's the line that everyone remembers because it's the only time we hear them speak in later episodes. Rodney and Del are arguing about whether or not Reg can stay. Del's trying to convince Rodney that he should get rid of him. And there's a line here that always gets cut, or it's been cut, because this is the first time that I ever heard this line when we watched this uncut version in preparation for the podcast. So they're arguing, and Del says,
In all that time, he didn't even know whether Grandad was alive or dead.
Well, we're never sure, are we?
And that line actually gets a huge laugh. So I'm assuming that was cut because of Leonard Pierce's death. Yes.
Yeah, and I'm assuming it aired in its full form on Christmas Day 1983. I personally had never heard that line either, and I read about it on IMDb before I watched the episode, and I'd never seen it. Yeah, because it used to just cut straight to the next line. He's back now.
Yeah,
in the VHS release that we had, it wasn't on it, and yes, it was taken out because Leonard Pierce died before they released it on any media.
I mean, I understand the sensitivity at the time. If anything, I would have understood it more when it aired. But of course, Leonard Pierce was still alive when it aired. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just interesting the things that they decide to cut, isn't it? You know, because now, obviously, I don't think anyone... I mean, I can't imagine Leonard Pierce would have minded that line being in there.
I don't think he would have minded, but I think it might have been for the cast as well. They didn't feel comfortable having that said when he died not that long after, but it was a year, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe. It's just interesting the things, isn't it, that you that they decide to cut and keep. So yeah, just that one line was cut from this episode and I never knew. So interesting. And then we've got a great response here where Del says,
What, after 18 years, did his watch stop?
Again, another continuity, because we're saying, 1965, 18 years, just so we're getting some context about the years. So those are important. And then a note about Reg in Del's shirt. Oh,
yeah, so I have a note about the shirt.
That image has stuck with me. You have a note about the shirt as well. Yeah, you can say what you were going to say.
Well, I was just going to say that in the script, it described the shirt as a Killer Dilla shirt, and I didn't know what that was. It says Reg is wearing one of Del's Killer Dilla shirts. And so it says here that influenced by 70s slang, the term Killer Dilla originated as 70s urban slang, meaning something so cool that words can't describe it. That's one of Del's cool shirts, but then you put it on Reg with the big, belly bursting out. Yeah, but that's a good way to show, because I think having Reg yell out, Del boy, pour yourself a drink when he comes in, he's supposed to be like Del, right? But he's not cool like Del.
He's not at all. Yeah.
So he can't pull it off.
Like evil Del.
Yeah, but he's wearing that shirt because it's trying to show that he thinks he's Del, but he's not.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that image is something that just always grossed me out when I was a kid, and it doesn't do much for me now, if I'm being honest as well. It's just that, really the belly so big that it pulls the shirt apart, and it's pulling so tight across his chest. Yeah, it's just not a nice image, but again, very suited for the character. So Del is baffled at Rodney and Grandad's attitudes, and he says,
That man is evil. No, that is the devil standing there.
and his dad now begins to lay it on pretty thick because he obviously can see that he needs to put his plan into action here because he's already got Grandad and Rodney on side. And he casually drops into the conversation that he's been in hospital. And Del claims that he's always pretended to be sick, so he doesn't believe him. And there's a great line here where Del says,
You know, once when I was a kid, I was doing my homework and I asked him what a cubic foot was. He said he didn't know, but he tried to have a week off work with it.
Grandad says that Reg can tell him and Rodney. So again, already we see this exclusion of Del even beginning here, where there's sort of three of them are against Del. And I don't like that. I feel that's pretty disloyal of Grandad and Rodney because they should understand this more from Del's point of view than Reg's point of view. Because they have, well, Rodney's been abandoned by Reg and Grandad has too. I mean, that's his father and he left him too in the lurch and left him to raise essentially his kids for him. I think that it's a bit harsh the way that Del and Grandad just sort of turn on Del quite early on after meeting their dad. He's only been there a few hours at the most, you know. Reg definitely noticed that Rodney and Grandad seemed to be siding with him, so luckily when Del is saying
Jackanori,
which I believe is a reference to a kids TV show, you said?
Yeah, we covered that already, didn't we?
Yeah, you covered it already. Yeah, they said that. So yeah, as you mentioned before, they talk a lot about kids TV shows. Del must watch a lot of kids TV. Luckily, he has a leaflet from the hospital to prove that he has been there. But obviously, it's not anything to do with, you know, a patient record or anything. It just seems to be a leaflet saying that that's the hospital. So he says that he has
Hereditary blood disease.
and I love the exchange between him and Grandad.
Oh, it's a medical word.
A long one, Reggie?
Oh, yeah.
Now, when I was a kid, I thought he said, it's a medical word, the long one, Reg. And he says, oh, yeah, which I thought was a slang for like an illness that's going to make you die in the long run.
Oh.
I actually misheard that quote for the longest time. I now realise he's talking about the actual word of the illness. But at the time and for the longest time, for most of my life, after watching this episode, I thought he was talking about the name of the illness is called the long one. And then he goes, yeah, the long one. That's what it is.
I
thought
thought
it was like a cancer kind of thing. Yeah, I just misheard it, but that's what I thought it was for the longest time. And it's actually really sweet here that Rodney tries to cheer him up because it looks like their dad is really upset. But then he's suddenly stopped in his track when he realises,
Hereditary? You said it was hereditary. That means I could have it.
And me.
I've got to say, Del's reaction to the thought that Rodney could have some sort of terminal blood disease is pretty harsh.
Yeah.
So he's laughing his head off about it. But of course, that works for the and me part of the joke. So
Yeah, it's put in just for the joke, but yeah, people have mentioned that online. Why would Del laugh when he's so concerned about Rodney? But it is kind of in keeping with his character.
Yeah, true. So Del and Rodney find out they have to go and have blood tests. And as Reg goes to bed, he says,
I wonder... Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas?
Christmas is very central to the story in this particular episode, and we actually know which day of Christmas or which, you know, part of Christmas they are on in every single scene. So we got a great exchange from Grandad and Rodney here.
Will I have to have blood tests as well?
No, it's hereditary. It means it's passed on, not back.
You're most probably the carrier.
So Del comments on the state of their Christmas festivities now.
I mean, some people get wise men bearing gifts. We get a wally with a disease.
And finally, Grandad tells them they're going to go straight to the hospital tomorrow. But of course, it's Boxing Day tomorrow. So Del says that he'll call Dr. Becker. So we get another mention of Dr. Becker here. And we find out later more about Dr. Becker, but we already discussed a little bit about that in Homesick. And we end the scene with Rodney saying that he gave Del's bed to Reg to sleep in. And Del is not happy. So do you have any notes on that scene?
Yeah, the only things that you didn't mention was I wrote that the other illnesses that Del says Reg had are hilarious. Galloping lurgy and Saturday Night Fever. He says that they see more of Halley's Comet than they do of him. So Halley's Comet returns to the solar system about once every 75 years.
Yeah.
So that's the reference there. I wrote that the innocence of Rodney in this scene is really heartbreaking, the way that he tries to help his dad up and reassure him. But you can, if you think about it, obviously, yeah, he should be really angry with them, and so should Grandad. But I think it's like one of these things where your family, and like Rodney hasn't had that family, and he just really wanted that. He wanted to feel like he had a father, so it's like he can't be angry the way Del is, or at least he's not letting the anger out yet.
Yeah, it's interesting because the only time that I can recall Del and Rodney discussing their dad in the series so far is in A Losing Streak, and Rodney gets really heated about him there.
Yeah.
When they're at the bar, and even Del calms him down and says, "Oi, oi, 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 that's your father you're talking about." So I think that it's interesting that Rodney straight away is so forgiving, because the only time that we've seen him talk about his dad, he was really mad. And presumably there's been many more moments like that where Del has said things about his dad and told him all these stories, because he says he's heard all these stories about him in the scene. So yeah, it's interesting that Rodney's able to forgive or forget about that stuff so easily and not be angry straight away, or at least make him work for it a little bit. I mean, we don't know what happened in between them answering the door to Reg and going to get Del, but even so, that is even if Rodney was like angry, he certainly calmed down very quickly, because this has only been a few hours at the most. So
I think because of Rodney's character being very still childish, he doesn't have a lot of resolve. He's angry, but he's also very easy to forgive. He forgives Del all the time, so maybe that's a factor. And one other note I wrote here is that it's easy to forget that Grandad, Del, and Rodney are not actually 3 generations of the Trotter family because of the age difference between Del and Rodney.
Yes.
Now we have the 3 generations, but it seems weird because you've got this like other guy here. And this is one of the only 2 times that we see Trotter family members, apart from strained relations. There's only these 2 episodes, unless you count wives and kids in the future, these like old Trotter family members. So we've always had that weird kind of setup where, the 3 ages are actually represented by the 2 brothers being very separate in age. Now you've got this.
Yeah, Del is the dad, isn't he? He's the father in the family, and then Grandad's the exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not like a dad figure at all. He's like another kid almost. That Del is the responsible adult. Then I just wrote that the Wally with the disease and the bed gag at the end of the scene, they both get applause from the audience. But I do think that anytime you have a special Christmassy episode, the audience is going to be very riled up and very excited.
Unless it's Diamonds Are for Heather or Christmas Crackers.
Yeah, but that's the thing, because I do think that the difference between those episodes and this one is the popularity of the show is so much more now.
Yeah, much
highly
more,
likely that a lot of the people that went to see this Christmas special were big fans, whereas back in Christmas Crackers and Diamonds for Heather, they were people who didn't know the show that well.
And also this episode is a lot better than those 2, so that also might have helped.
That too, yeah, for sure.
Okay, great. So now we cut to New Year's Eve. And we're back in the flat.
You don't even notice that, do you, until you write the scenes out, that it's all in the flat so far.
Yeah, back in the flat again. Yeah. It's okay. It's all good. It's all family stuff. So it's been a week since we had the previous scene, and we find out from Grandad that Reg is down the pub for the New Year's do. That's how we know that it's New Year's Eve. And Del is disappointed that Reg hasn't left. And Grandad says,
"You talk about your father as if he's an alien. I mean, you seem to think of him as E.T.
No, I don't, Grandad. E.T. went home."
So again, we get another pop culture reference there. When did E.T. come out?
Wasn't it like the highest grossing movie of 1981? We mentioned it in our Christmas special.
Yeah, it's recent.
I wrote that joke seems really forced in. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's saying that E.T. went home. That's the whole reason that they're saying it.
But he wanted to use that line. But like, why would Grandad say that he thinks he's like an alien? I think it seems forced, that line. That's all I wrote.
Yeah, that's a fair comment. Yeah, it's a bit out of character for Grandad to say something like that, I suppose. So the blood tests have arrived, and we find out that Reg has opened them before he left. So Rodney reads his first, and he gets the
all clear. It's all clear. I got an all clear, my son!
And Del is not happy for him because he hasn't read his yet, which is always awkward. Yeah, if you get to celebrate and the other person doesn't know their results, that's always an awkward moment. Del reads his and he misunderstands the results.
The results of my tests are negative.
And my favourite part of this joke is the way that Rodney and Grandad react in the background. And Rodney kind of holds on to Grandad like, oh no! And then Rodney suddenly realises.
Well, that means all clear as well, you plonker.
So they're celebrating. They begin to celebrate. They say they're going to go and celebrate, and Rodney leaves the room to change. And that's when Grandad notices that they have different blood groups.
My blood group is AB, and Rodney's blood group is A.
So that joke reminds me of there's me and you from Friday the 13th. And there's another one coming as well. So now we get the first ever mention or the first ever hint about the fact that Rodney and Del might have different dads. This is the first time it's mentioned.
We both got the same mother, and we both got the same father.
And we get this great look from Grandad to stop him in his tracks, because Grandad obviously has always been suspicious that there is a different father for Rodney. So Del and Grandad have a conversation, and the first thing that Grandad brings up is an anecdote about someone called Maisie Turner. And the crux of the joke is, I guess it would be quite offensive today to say what the punchline of the joke is, but it's basically that it was obvious the children were from different fathers because they were different races, not through blood groups. But obviously it's meant to believe that he's propping up the different blood groups theory to Del. And actually, just out of curiosity, I asked Mom earlier what our blood groups are. Do you know what your blood group is, dude?
I thought I did, yeah. Oh, negative.
Mom told me that mine is negative and yours is positive.
Mine is different to yours and friends, so I'm O positive and you guys are O neg then.
So yes, that's just a bit of trivia about us, the fact that we're sisters and we have different blood groups. So. And of course, their first reaction is to think that Rodney is the mystery.
Well,
here, which is interesting because they don't even seem to consider that Del could be the one who has the different dad, so that's quite interesting.
because he looks exactly like his father. He's exactly the same.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, I can understand why they jumped to that conclusion. So they speak a bit about their mom's history with men here. And of course, we get no mention of Freddy the Frog because this character had not been conceived of yet.
Yeah.
And they just mention musicians that she might have slept with at the time Rodney was conceived. And Grandad also points out how tall Rodney is compared to Del. I think that's something that we all notice. And again, that's probably the main reason most people in the audience would think they weren't really brothers, because their difference in height.
Yeah.
So Rodney comes back into the room and Del and Grandad are immediately awkward with him. And there's a funny line to break the tension here where Rodney says,
I wonder where Dad is.
It's exactly what me and your grandfather were wondering.
So Del keeps acting strangely. He's checking his height against Rodney, like very obvious that there's something wrong. And then finally Rodney makes them tell him what's wrong. And they explain everything to him that they've just discussed. But I said here, they certainly jump to a lot of conclusions to tell him something this big without any actual evidence other than blood types. The way that they tell him this is like they are certain that he has a different dad. They don't even say it might be possible because of the blood. They're like, this is what we're telling you now and this is fact and you have to accept it. Which is a bit ridiculous because they literally only just thought of this themselves.
Yeah, and they tell him that his dad was a band. Yeah, so like... It's kind of like the trigger. My dad was some soldiers. Like,
yeah,
they do, actually,
I think I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, like they do. They go straight from not knowing, like just from seeing one piece of paper to telling him from one memory that Grandad has of Maisie Turner and
the fact that he's taller than
Yeah.
Del, literally something that they've seen their whole life and not talked about it. So yeah, it's a very big leap to take in such a short period of time with very flimsy premise for your evidence,
right.
Is what I said. Rodney gets frustrated and he says,
Are you trying to say that man is not our father?
No. Just isn't yours.
Del gives Rodney all the information and then that finally leads to Rodney saying, as you just said,
Are you trying to tell me that my dad was a band?
No, Rodney, no. Just the brass section.
So here Rodney muses about the next time he will have to fill out his passport application, and again this joke reminded me, as you said, of Trigger's joke in a later episode. I think it's Video Nasty. Some soldiers. And actually the joke that Rodney tells here about his passport application, I don't fully understand because I've never been able to make out every word that he says. I wasn't sure if you could shed some light on that.
Father's name Herb Albert and a Tijuana Brass.
it's just he just says that his father was Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. That's I would say brass.
I don't understand that.
It's just Herb Albert was he still is, sorry. He's an old man, yeah. Lives in Malibu, actually. Old musician, Grammy-winning musician, and played with the Tijuana Brass band. Yeah, it's...
Okay, so after that, Reg enters angrily and goes straight to Del's cigar pot, which he does every time he walks in the room.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, as you say, at this point, it's like they're really trying to hammer home the point that Reg is just like Del, which is, again, I think maybe done. So this next bit is a little bit more surprising, maybe, as well. Just to sort of, as a bit of a red herring. So it almost seems like he was waiting outside the door for the entrance, actually, there, because he comes in right after they've had the same thought that he planted for them to think. So I don't know if he was actually waiting and listening. It wouldn't surprise me because it's all part of his plan, right? For them to think this so he can come in. Because he doesn't ask them if they've come to this conclusion. It just so happens that they have just come to this conclusion themselves. So it's a bit contrived. So I wonder if that was all down to him.
I'd just like to know who the El Tonto was. If your mother was alive now, I'd kill her.
Which makes Del lunge at him from across the room. Again, very few times that we see Del's character do something like this. I think the only other one I can think of is Class of 62.
Yeah, with Raquel, yeah.
When he goes for Slater. Are there any other times where he goes to that extent? I know he gets angry at people.
No, because I think it's a different kind of anger when it's the family and his mom especially, but then like later episodes, yeah, Raquel.
I always think of that when Rodney's describing to Cassandra what a dirty little fighter Del is. I think because we met Reg Trotter in this episode, that is much easier to picture. Del is held back by Rodney. Actually, it's just Rodney grabbing his arm that holds him back. Grandad doesn't get in there fast enough. And then Reg pleads with Del to see things from his point of view. And then Del puts him in his place, assuming that he's talking about Rodney. And then Reg drops the bomb.
I don't know what you keep bringing Rodney into this for. You're the mystery.
And Rodney and Grandad's reactions here, I think, are a bit harsh. It's almost like they are more than shocked. They're almost grossed out because they're holding on to Del. And then they both take their hands off. And like Grandad especially, he kind of looks at Del with a bit of disgust here, which I thought was a bit of a harsh reaction, considering Del was like, it's not going to make a difference to Rodney, like, and we're fine with you if you're the mystery. And the second that it's Del that's revealed as being that, they both take their hands off him and almost take a step back from him. Whereas you think they'd be like, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter if that is the case, but they weren't.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, this is actually a huge thing, isn't it? A massive, if you can see, this is 1983. The final episode was filmed in 2003. You can already see the change in attitude. This,
Yes.
having a different father, or being a bastard, as it said in many different
Well, it's hinted at in this
representations.
episode.
Like, well, people don't even use that word now because it's
No.
out, like it's not really appropriate anymore. It is weird the way that they act as if you are no longer part of the family because you're not blood. Whereas in the 2003 episode, they do come to the conclusion that Rodney has a different father and it doesn't matter to them.
It doesn't matter. In this episode, Del did say it won't matter when they're telling Rodney that he's got a different dad.
But he's
And
still
they both-
devastated.
Grandad, no, Rodney
Yeah.
is, but what I mean is like Del and Grandad, their way of dealing with Rodney when they're telling him he's from a different father is very understanding, very kind, like, don't worry, it's not going to make a difference. But when Del is revealed to be the one who's got a different dad, Rodney and Grandad both have, I think, a very unsupportive reaction to Del. I know that it came out in a more dramatic way than when they describe it to Rodney, but even so, yeah, it's, you can watch that moment back and tell me what you think, but they both look kind of grossed out by him, almost like disgusted a little bit. And Del is obviously looking for somewhere to go with his words and he can't find anywhere. So yeah, it's a bit of a shame that they weren't more supportive, I guess is what I'd say. So do you have any more notes for that scene?
I was going to say most of my notes on the way they are with Del are in the next scene, so I'll save them. But
yeah, it continues into the next scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. So,
but for this scene, I wrote, so yes, obviously the timeline stuff doesn't add up with the, because if you watch Rock and Chips, and again, I know he didn't write any of this until then, but Joan's affair with Freddie the Frog starts in Rock and Chips, and Rodney's born in Rock and Chips. There's no band, there's no musicians. It doesn't matter.
No.
But yeah, so obviously that doesn't match up. Two things about Reg opening the letter. I don't know about in the UK, but in the US, it's a federal crime to open somebody else's mail. And if it's to do with medical records, you probably go to prison for a long time for doing that. I don't know about in the UK. But also, yeah, like Grandad's explanation for, he was worried, he wanted to know. Why did he open them and then go to the pub? Like, he didn't even want to hang around.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. Grandad's army records, he mentions. Reg mentions that he checked the blood group on Grandad's army records. Was Grandad in the army? And where did he get the records from? How did he know where to look?
Can anyone just go and check on? That's a good point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, where's that stuff available?
This is all just artistic license, I guess, because none of this matters.
Well, also as well, I mean, it could all just be bullshit because obviously this is all part of the only reason that Reg opened those letters is to write the other B on the letter. So actually it is all bullshit. It's meant to be.
Yeah, so then I just put it's 18 minutes and 39 seconds into the episode, and we're finally leaving the flat for the next set. And I'll just say my note on this scene, because it's all I've really put for this scene, and that is that it doesn't, to me personally, and I'm sure I'm not alone on this, like, blood doesn't make family. And it's really surprising that after Del raised Rodney and looked after Grandad for all these years, that they would then be like, oh, he's not actually our blood family, so he's separate. Like, yes. I know that it's all done to build up the tension and make it feel like Reg has driven a wedge between them, but it's too dramatic. Like, I don't believe that Rodney and Grandad, I know Rodney's very sad and sympathetic, but I wouldn't believe it. It's too much.
Yeah. I basically wrote the same thing. Yeah, exactly, in the next scene. So we go to the next day. So it's New Year's Day. The New Year's Eve party was the night before. This is established in the scene. So again, we know exactly what day it is. And we are in the Nag's Head. And Del is looking at the handwritten AB on his letter. So he's been carrying that around with him all day, presumably since he got it and since he found out the news. So Karen, the barmaid, and Del have a chat at the bar before Rodney and Grandad and Reg enter from the other side of the bar. So I think it's terrible the way that Grandad and Rodney treat Del here. And after Reg says,
"That's very nice of you, but I'm with my family,"
they should have told him straight away that Del is their family more than he will ever be, and both gone and sat with Del.
Mm-hmm.
That is what they should have said. The moment he made that joke and they say nothing, like, that is just... Yeah, I'm so unsupportive of Del. You know, as you said, the loyalty should be to Del. He's the one who's been there for them all this time. So Rodney does dismiss himself and go to see Del, and he goes over to him. But again, it's very awkward. Like, that brotherly kind of vibe is not there. Rodney almost creeps up on him a little bit like he's a stranger and he's wary of him. So Rodney must have known how hard this would be for Del, and it just seems like he should have been supporting Del a lot more than he was.
You seem to be seeing a lot of the old man lately.
And Rodney admits that they went to the zoo earlier that day. So yeah, I mean, again, putting this into the timeline and the order of things that happen, he found out with Del yesterday that Del is not his brother. This is a huge thing for his brother to be going through. And he's still his half-brother, even if he's not a full sibling. And this is his reaction. His reaction wasn't, no, I can't go to the zoo with you, Dad, because I need to stay and look after Del. He's in a really bad way today. Yeah, Grandad can stay with you, but I'm going to go and be with Del because he needs me. So yeah, Rodney pleads with Del to come home because we find out that Del did not sleep in the flat last night. And then he tells him,
do you know, at school once during a biology lesson, the subject of genetics come up, right? And the teacher said that children with the same parents can have different blood groups. Look, the only difference between us is a B.
Yeah, we all know what B stands for.
So this is alluding to your mention of the word bastard, which again, as a kid, I did not understand that joke at all. So Reg calls Rodney back over, and Rodney convinces Del to join them by saying,
"Hey, you dares wins,"
which I thought was a really nice reverse psychology trick on Del there, because he always uses that to get around people, and now it's been used on him. And it works. So Reg immediately winds up Del when he gets to the table.
Does your friend want to play as well?
He just can't help himself, and he says,
"He's touchy, ain't he? Don't know who he gets it from."
So we actually have 3 jokes here, but the last joke I didn't mention, but I do want to mention the camera at the end lingering on David Jason's death stare face. We had a very similar cut in Wanted at the end of the scene when Boise tells the joke. But the thing that I found interesting about this cut is we actually see Del start speaking as it fades out. So I'd love to know what he said back to Reg, because you can't make it out.
Really?
You see his lips move, but you can't make it out. So watch that cut again. You see right at the end when it's fading out, Del starts to speak. We go back to the flat again for the final scene. And actually, I've got to say, I think this is very appropriate that we have so much in the flat for this episode, given the subject matter. So I assume that this is maybe a day or 2 after. This is the only part of the episode that I'm not 100% sure, but I'm guessing around the 3rd of January, because if that was a New Year's Day, it's probably only taken Del a couple of days to get the information that he needed to bring Reg down. He gets quite a reaction when he walks in, like he's been away for at least a few nights. Mm-hmm. So Reg has clearly taken over the flat at this point, and he's acting like he owns the place. This sick old man routine that he was doing at the beginning has now completely gone away.
Well, why didn't you nip Del for a few quid?
I can't ask Del for money after what's happened.
No, I don't suppose you can. Rodney could.
So again, he's just completely using Grandad and Rodney for his own manipulative purposes, and it really shows at this point. Not that it wasn't showing already throughout the rest of the episode. So Del comes home and he proclaims that he's in for the night, which makes Grandad very happy, which is adorable. And Del goes to get a cigar and discovers they've all gone. Reg has had every single one. Rodney is miserable, sitting in the chair, and Reg is actually out of the room here with Grandad.
Earlier on, I showed him my GCE certificates, right? And he said he was proud of me and all that, right? Then he went and wrote a bet on the back of one of them.
Del and Rodney have this lovely exchange before Reg and Grandad comes back in, where Del tells Rodney that he took his advice, and he'll let him know what that advice was in a moment. So Reg comes in, and they're arguing. Grandad and Reg are arguing about the fact that there's no more alcohol left in the house because Reg drank it all.
You don't fancy popping down to the off-licence to get a few drinks into your Del boy?
No.
So straight away, Del reclaims back his authority, I put, in this moment. Already, straight away, he's denying this spoilt brat of a father who's moved in and had Rodney and Grandad doing everything for him, and now Del straight away saying no. And now we get an extremely satisfying comeuppance for Reg.
See, I went down to see Dr. Becker this evening.
Yeah? Well, what's wrong with you, Del boy?
Well, for the last week or so, I've been suffering from this pain in the arse.
So we find out that he asked for new blood tests from Dr. Becker, and Rodney was right that the same parents can produce kids with different blood groups, which Reg dismisses by saying,
That's rubbish. I mean, what does he know anyway?
Oh, he knows quite a lot. Like he knows that my blood group is Group A.
Well, why did he write AB on your result?
He didn't, Grandad. Somebody added the B.
And you can clearly see here that Rodney and Grandad have completely turned against Reg now with this revelation. Rodney's doing his standing tall, towering over everyone's stance, looking down at people, which he always does when he's in a situation where he feels like he's got the upper hand, I've noticed. He's quite intimidating, actually, Nick Lyndhurst, when he stands like this, you know, with his height and everything and his fantastic death stare that he does. So Reg realises that he's losing their sympathy at this point, and he brings up his illness again. Fortunately, Del is ready for him.
They found that they didn't have a patient called Trotter. But they did have a porter called Trotter.
So after this revelation that he was never ill and he was the one that changed their blood groups, Reg tries one last time to get them on his side by saying,
I don't feel all that well.
Which kind of reminded me of Grandad, actually, the way he delivered that line. So that was quite good, considering he's his son. And at this point, Del kicks him out of the flat, but not before he gives him some money to be going on with, which I just said, Del is such a good guy. He was under absolutely no obligation to give his dad any money after what he's pulled in the last week and a half, and he did still. And sent him into the bedroom, presumably to pack his stuff up before he leaves. So Reg is in the bedroom packing up, and then Grandad is the first one to speak after Reg leaves the room, because it's been quite silent for a while here.
Dirty, conniving
All right,
little...
Grandad, all right. So I'll tell you what, I hid a bottle of scotch underneath the sink.
Oh, good boy, dear.
So Del, again, being the father figure for the whole group, making everyone calm down. I mean, Del has every right here to be absolutely raging, and he's the calmest one. And he's keeping everyone together as a family and keeping the mood light, which is, again, just a wonderful character, really. So Rodney is clearly the most heartbroken one here, probably because he never actually met Reg in the past like the others did, and therefore he could still hold on to some hope that he ever came back. If he ever came back, he would be a good guy. But that has all been dashed at this point. So I think it probably hurt Rodney the most out of everybody. And Del ends with,
We'll all soon be back to just the way we were.
Dear boy, I burnt your pizza.
See what I mean?
and I've got to say that is a very bittersweet ending, knowing that this is actually the last time we're going to see the three of them together on the screen. It's lucky that they decided to do this one. I said, well, Leonard Pierce was still alive, because this episode wouldn't have had the same impact otherwise.
Well, yeah, I'm guessing even if he had the script, he wouldn't have been able to redo this one as easily without the Grandad character.
I think it needed to be Grandad, because it wouldn't have worked obviously with Albert, because he's his nephew.
Well, yeah, it's worth thinking about this. You know, we are going to talk about this over the next couple of episodes, but the whole of Series 4 was written before Leonard Pierce died. So every episode, with the exception of Happy Returns and Strained Relations, the script was rewritten to change the character from Grandad to Albert. So
Yeah.
we don't know, and we'll never know how much was changed and amended. But he wouldn't have been able to switch the character of Grandad for Albert in this episode, I don't think. It would have had to have been a Rodney and Del only episode.
So it might have been the one that they did instead of Happy Returns. It might have ended up as this one instead.
Yeah, Happy Returns was a slotted in script written just as a season opener. They already knew Leonard Pierce was dead at that point. This episode needed Leonard Pierce. So yeah, you're right.
Very lucky that it was the last one. Yeah, very fortunate timing.
It's hilarious that the pizza is on fire. I wrote that. It's actually on fire.
God, that went from 0 to 60, didn't it? Yeah, it's crazy how quickly that happened. Do you have any more notes about this scene?
That moment, that little tiny bit of scene before Del comes in, is a reality that could have been a horrible, terrible father in charge of the household instead of Del. And then obviously Del comes in. He's his old self when he comes in, and the relief from the audience is massive. Like, you've got Savior Del coming in, his old confident self. He's not sad, he's not beaten down, he's got the solution. So it makes us feel like an incredible warmth for the original Trotter family.
I agree.
And we need to get this horrible man out as quickly as possible. But it's very sad to see Grandad and Rodney, because they essentially lose a son and a father in the space of 5 minutes. Not that he was the best or anything, but it's just the idea, isn't it, of that family member. And then finally, it doesn't say anything in the script about Del giving Reg the money. So I'm guessing it was a last minute decision, maybe a David Jason suggestion again.
It's very in keeping with Del's character. So I think at this point, David Jason would have been extremely aware of the sort of thing his character would have done. So it makes sense it would have been something that David Jason decided to do.
Yeah, or just a last minute suggestion by Ray Butt or something. But either way, it's something that people always remember, is that no matter what the Trotters have gone through, family is still at the top of. I mean, he thinks he's his father at this point, and he is Del's father, right? We find out later that he's not Rodney's father, but yeah, it's still family, it's still blood, even though he never wants to see him again. He can't see him out with nothing.
Let's move on to our award segment.
And guess what? He's only one.
Okay, so as always, we have 3 awards to announce this week, and we will start with Plonker of the Week.
Don't be a plonker.
So for Plonker of the Week, we each nominate a plonker, and then we discuss and decide who wins. So, dude, who is your nomination for Plonker of the Week?
Well, it's got to be Reg, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Reg is the plonker because he thought he could muscle his way back into the family and replace and get rid of Del. Yeah, that's a plonkerish thing to think you can do, to be honest.
But the thing is, he was able to do it, just albeit temporarily.
For a week and a bit. Yeah, he was able to.
Perhaps slightly unbelievable way, because it's very easy plan to unpick. But he just seriously underestimated Del.
But as you say, it did work momentarily.
Yeah.
But also maybe because of Grandad and Rodney's reaction to him, they so desperately wanted to accept him and wanted him to be a good guy that they gave him the benefit of the doubt, probably more than they would have if they'd have had their heads screwed on and they're not emotionally involved.
I mean, yeah, they cast the guy to look like David Jason for a reason. As an audience, perhaps we were never supposed to fall for it. We were always supposed to know it was a scam, because otherwise they wouldn't have bothered casting him to look like David Jason.
Well, I thought he also, considering you told me he's like 9 years older than David Jason, I thought he really looked like their dad. I thought that was amazing casting, considering there's only 9 years between them. I wouldn't have said that at all.
I mean, yeah, they would have aged up Peter Woodthorpe. Yeah, I agree. Reg was my plonker too. So plonker of the week is Reg Trotter.
I'm not proud of what I did. I'm ashamed.
Okay, so this week Heather will award Best Line of the Episode, and I will award Best Moment. So, dude, what have you chosen for your Best Line of the Episode?
There are 3 actually here that I have to choose from. So my first one is, that means it's passed on, not back. You're almost probably the carrier. That's a funny one. Also I asked him what a cubic foot was. He said he didn't know, but he tried to have a week off work with it. And then my final one is, some people get wise men bearing gifts. We got a wally with a disease. I don't know if that one might be the contender for the best line, because that is in keeping, you know which episode that comes from, based on the fact that it's mentioning Christmas and we get a wally with a disease, which is, we know it's Reg.
I honestly, my favourite line of those 3 is the cubic foot line.
That is a great line. Yeah, I mean, they're all great lines. This is what I mean. But I guess for me, I would pick the Wally with the disease.
Sure, yeah.
Because it's this episode. It sums up this episode perfectly. You could almost put that as the synopsis for this episode.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
And what about the best moment, dude? What have you chosen?
I mean, I think the audience would always feel the relief moment of when Del actually catches Reg out. I think is the best moment. It's the most feel-good moment. He gets rid of him. I better be leaving, like, so soon. You know, like, we all feel such relief to know the Trotters are back as a family. So I put that as the best moment.
Yeah, that's definitely got this intensity to it. And the acting is fantastic from all of them. I did write down a possible honourable mention would be you're the mystery. Because that's a big reveal moment where everyone's not really sure what to do.
Yeah, that's a really good twist.
Yeah, it's a good twist. And maybe one of the moment that I just think is really, it's one of my favourite Grandad moments, I think, of all Grandad moments is when he hugs his son.
Yeah.
After not seeing him for all that time.
I agree. I think that's really nice. But considering that we know Reg is such a scumbag, it's hard to feel happy for Reg, just Grandad.
Oh, yeah. It's just Grandad.
Yeah.
I feel in that moment, like I could feel his happiness, which is, you know, and obviously we all love Grandad as a character. So yeah, I think that's the reason. But yeah, I think your one is great too. So kicking Reg out is the best moment of the episode.
Yeah. Okay, great. So if there's nothing else, then drink up, we're leaving.
Okay, so that about wraps it up for this week and for Series 3. So join us next week when we'll be doing our Series 3 wrap episode. And until then...
Del boy, I burnt your pizza.
Au revoir, listeners. If you like what you hear and want to contact us, you can email us at longlivehooky street podcast@gmail.com. All one word, no spaces. Bonjour.